Welcome, everyone. My name is Jody Nishioka. I am the Executive Director of Communities Rise, and we partnered with Communities of Opportunity, which is part of a public-private partnership with King County, to put together this wonderful human resources and equity toolkit for you. And so today we're launching it, and we're just going to spend an hour together just kind of sharing with you what the toolkit is and answering some questions, and then I'm just going to go by really fast. This is our third launch of our toolkits, and it's been going really well. So we're really excited to see you all. But this week has been a really heavy week, and this month really has been heavy. And I'm feeling, as we were preparing for all of you to join us, I was sharing with my colleagues that I'm feeling a little tender today. I think it's been just like the accumulation of the week. So a friend of mine, a colleague of mine, shared a poem with me today that I thought was really on point and helpful. So I thought I'd share it with you today as a way to start our day together. And it's by Sharon Bridgeforth. And it starts, remember, a closed heart hardens. It tightens till it breaks and crumbles to bits. Kneel in the sanctity of your resilience. Reach for evidence that you are not alone. And when you find yourself stuck, crawl and relish even the slightest forward movement. Be still in the cracks in the pulse of your weary heart till it creates you a new song. It just helped me a little today, so I thought I'd share it. And you're not alone. We're not alone. We're all here together on this Friday afternoon. So with that, I'd love for you to introduce yourself in the chat with your name and your pronouns, your org. And maybe the question today would be, what are you doing or have you done this week to take care of yourselves and your loved ones? If you want to share, or you could just share a word about how you're feeling today. And while you're doing that, I'm going to do a land acknowledgement. So I'm going to go ahead and do that too. We acknowledge and recognize our native people of this land, both past and present. Those who were the original stewards of this land before colonization, and we give our respect for the enduring relationship between all Indigenous peoples and their traditional territories, for the practices and spiritualities that are tied to this land of which we work and live. We acknowledge their suffering, the land theft and genocide, and we honored with gratitude this land itself and the people who it ultimately belongs to. We also recognize and acknowledge the labor with which this country was built on the labor of enslaved people who were kidnapped and brought to the US from the continent of Africa. And we recognize the continuous contributions of their ancestors and survivors. We also acknowledge all immigrant labor, including voluntary, involuntary, trafficked, forced, and undocumented people who contributed to the building of this country and continue to serve within our labor force. We acknowledge all unpaid caregiving labor. We also acknowledge the trauma both experienced and witnessed of all Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Asian, Pacific Islanders, and other people of color, and our enduring spirit, as well as our resilience. So I'm still feeling like I just need a little more centering. So I'm gonna just sit here with you all and let's just take a couple of breaths to get us in this space together, if you don't mind. So yeah, just get comfortable and feel the ground beneath your feet, connection to the earth. And take a nice inhalation. And exhaling, release the heaviness if you can, down into the earth. Let the earth support you. And know that we are in this together. Let's take another couple of breaths on your own. And last one, as you inhale, feel a sense of your resilience and the energy we're bringing together. Thank you for that. So I'm going to turn it over. And first I want to introduce to you our team today. Kiana Jackson, if you want to wave, Kiana, is our speaker today and our HR and equity expert who helped put together, write the materials in the toolkit and was also in the video that you'll be seeing. And she'll be presenting later after this a little bit more. Kalayan, or we call her Kai Domingo, who is with COO, if you want to wave, and then Mei Shi, who is our person who's helping us today with, who's from Cascadia Consulting, who's helping us with all of the technology and pulling all the stuff together in the background. So thank you to all of you. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Kai, who's going to do the next section.
Welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I believe, May, you're going to queue up a slide for me. And thank you, Jody, for holding that space for us, for all of us to acknowledge what's been going on, what continues to happen. Definitely plays an impact upon our hearts and minds, our spirits. I do want to acknowledge that COO is offering some somatics workshops virtually. And I'll put the link in so that we can continue to build our practice around, while we're doing our equity and justice work in a really turbulent society. It's important for us to build these practices and skills of resilience. And you all are invited to join those sessions. So I'll add that. I want to acknowledge Communities of Opportunity, who's provided the resources for these toolkits and for our time together today. We are a public-private partnership with Seattle Foundation and King County. We began our early planning and development in 2014, and with Best Starts for Kids received more resources to invest in community power and systems change through our place-based and cultural community work and our policy and systems change grantees. And I am the lead for what we call our learning community, where we weave together workshops, resources, connections to really build on the knowledge that exists in our King County community and providing opportunities for us to learn collectively and to really examine what tools we need and how we need to shift our practices to advance equity in King County and in our organizations and in our relationships. We've been lucky enough to work with Communities Rise and Sarah Tran from Sama Praxis to really lead in the development of these toolkits. And May, you can go ahead and shift to the next slide. And we have, as Jody said, 3 toolkits that we launched this year in partnership with Sama Praxis and Communities Rise. And I'm really excited to be here today for this final launch. If you have missed our other launches, we had a community collaboration toolkit earlier this spring, an alternative leadership toolkit, and today our final human resources and equity toolkit. All of those toolkits can be found on our website, along with the videos and the recordings of the Zoom sessions that we did, the launches. And we are really excited to launch our final one today and look forward to hearing how you all are using this, how we can improve, and what other ideas you have. So thanks for joining us today. And I am going to pass it on to Kiana.
Thank you so much, Kai. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, May. Thank each of you for joining us today on this Friday before a holiday weekend. As I read your responses in the chat for what you all are doing to take care of yourselves and your loved ones this week, just sending lots and lots of love to each of you. And as we continue to practice those things to take care of ourselves through all that we're faced with in this world. And with that, we are going to take it a little bit further and pose the question to you all in some groups to discuss some wellness and practices that you all are doing within your organization. And so May is, I believe, going to put the question in the chat. And the question is, do you have an equity or wellness built into your employment policies? And if so, share that with the group and how that was done at your organization. And if you haven't done that yet, share some of the dreams and goals and intentions and aspirations you have with respect to equity or wellness policies and procedures that you would love to see at your organization. So May is gonna break us out into some groups, and then you'll have a couple of minutes to share with each other in your groups. And then we'll come back together and we'll ask a couple of you, one or two of you, to share out to the collective the practices that you all have, that you talked about in your groups. So with that, I will ask May to break us out. Welcome back, everyone. Looks like folks are slowly coming back. Welcome, welcome. Welcome. I saw and I heard some really good stuff that you all were chatting about in your rooms. And so we have one or two people just share some of the wellness practices that you all have implemented at your organization, or your aspirations, if you don't have them, what you would love to see at your organization with respect to wellness. At least one person, one or two would be awesome.
And you can raise your hand, or you can just unmute.
Yes. Looks like Francois. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Françoise.
Francis?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I just share what we do on Fridays because as all our employees are coming back to work in the office, so we have what we call Fun Friday, like once a month. And during that Fun Friday, this is with Congolese Integration Network. And on the Fun Friday, we do have games that employees have time to play and to eat together and to have some music going on. So just giving the time for employees only, not with clients. And we do that last Friday of the month. And yeah, that's something that we do for our wellness.
I love that. I love that idea. Is that like is it like an hour, or is it during a certain time, or is it all day? Like, what are the?
No, it's not all day. We take it for an hour and 30 minutes.
Hour and 30 minutes?
Yeah,
Nice.
an hour and 30 minutes, on Friday, it's mostly during lunchtime, because we eat together and we have time to play games and listen to some music, because Congolese people, they like music. It's not only Congolese, because now we are diverse. So we put some music that everybody will enjoy.
Nice. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Eating together always is a good place to start. Anyone else want to share something they would love to see at the organization, or they're already doing with respect to wellness? One more person.
I shared that we do flex time. So we all work remote, and we're committed to staying remote, and it's better for us because of the nature of the work we do. We can have people all over Washington State. But we also do flex time. So we do expect that everybody, keeps their calendar up to date in terms of their availability. But, if you need to go to Costco in the middle of the day or, pick up your kids or whatever it may be, you can do so, as long as you get your hours in and your work done, and then go to any meetings that you've committed to attending. And it works really well for us, and hopefully eases people's stress, with their obligations outside of work.
Love that idea. Flex time. So, and the idea is just to make sure everyone knows, do they have to say I'm going to Costco, or I'm going to pick up my kids, or are they just I'm out during this particular time?
Yep, and they can just say they'll be out during that time. They can put it on their calendar. And And so we all have access to everybody's calendars, so we can see. So if we need to schedule a meeting or something, we know, not to schedule when Charlie picks up his kids every Thursday from school, from at 2:30. And that way it's just not stressful for anyone.
Exactly. I'm not looking for Charlie at that time because I know that
Right.
he's out. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you all for sharing. Those are some great ideas, and let's keep that conversation going amongst yourselves or at your organization as to ways that you can increase wellness or pay attention to wellness practices at your organization. We are now going to play the video that I created for this toolkit. It is about 8 minutes or so. And it'll be available to you, obviously, at any time, so you can listen to it again. And then after the video plays, then I'll go over some quick highlights, support you, and we'll have some Q&A, and then we'll close out. So May, do you want to cue the video for the group, please? Hello, my name is Kiana Jackson, and I'm a human resources consultant with a specific focus on supporting organizations on embedding DEI in their HR practices. I'm so glad that you're here, and I hope that you're able to glean some nuggets of information to help answer your HR-related questions. This video is part of an HR and Equity Toolkit, which was created by Communities Rise to support organizations like you that want to reimagine human resources in a way that helps create the equitable world that we are all striving for. The full toolkit can be found on the Communities of Opportunities website and the Communities Rise website. It will allow you to dive more deeply into the topics, while this video just highlights a few key concepts. When organizations commit to DEI, they slow down. They become more intentional, and they make decisions around how they administer HR that help dismantle the white supremacy culture that currently exists as the norm in our workplaces. The results are a diverse and inclusive workforce with equitable practices that are designed to help marginalized communities thrive. One thing I've learned over the years is that often folks have different definitions of words. So to ensure that we are all on the same page, I'd like to share what I mean when I use the words diversity, equity, and inclusion. These are my definitions, just mine. Diversity is the what? It is the characteristics of the people you work with, the differences in a group, and it extends beyond race and gender, and it includes other attributes like class, ability, whether you live in a rural or urban area, even your mindset and your skills. Equity is ensuring folks have what they need to succeed based on their unique circumstances, their strengths, and their growth areas. I like to think of equity as both a process and an outcome. The process being a tailored approach to providing resources and support to historically marginalized groups so that they can fully participate and reach their full potential. The outcome being that we have achieved the equitable communities and workplaces where everyone has what they need to thrive. Inclusion I like to think of as the how. It is the behaviors and social norms that ensure people feel welcome. It is an intentional, sustained, and specific effort to make people feel welcome, valued, heard, and respected. When you add that all up, embedding equity in HR is a true and deep effort to understand and welcome folks with different lived experiences than ours. It aims to remove unfair barriers to opportunity and ultimately build a just society where everyone, regardless of who they are, is able to thrive and live a full and meaningful life. There are many areas in the HR wheelhouse, but today we are going to focus on 3: compensation, staff wellness, and performance. Compensation is such a complicated concept, and let's be real, any process, online platform, or service, or even a consultant comes with bias. So this particular area of HR requires slowing way down, being very intentional and thoughtful, asking a ton of questions, and challenging the status quo. Align your compensation strategy and philosophy with your organization's values. For example, if equity is one of your organization's values, that could start with performing a pay equity audit. This will help to uncover any inequities that exist, and then you can make a plan to correct them. Get internal input from all levels of your organization and seek input from other organizations. And that doesn't mean that you have to take every suggestion into play, but a diversity of perspectives results in a richer, more comprehensive outcome. Develop salary structures that have a floor and a ceiling. The floor being the lowest wage that you're willing to pay anyone in your organization. This clearly communicates your thoughtfulness around the importance of everyone having a livable wage. Having a ceiling creates a structure that lessens the gap and supports the narrative that those at the top of the organization are no more valuable than others. The second area is staff wellness. If there's anything we should have learned during these challenging times, is that staff wellness is paramount. The health and well-being of our staff is key in their ability to show up in the workplace and provide the valuable input and contributions that they were hired for. Here are a few things to consider as you lean into supporting the whole beings that are in your organization. Number one, review your health benefits. Look to see if they provide mental health coverage. If they don't, look for creative ways to support your staff financially to receive the support that they need. Number two, Zoom fatigue is real. Consider providing your staff with some support to reduce the fatigue that they're feeling during these challenging times. And that could look like Zoom-free Fridays. That could look like wellness or self-care days, COVID days. And all of this is on top of any sort of accrued PTO that they may be receiving. Thirdly, bring in a trauma-informed consultant to join your staff on a call or in person if that becomes safe to do so, to create dedicated time to talk through systems that affect Black and Brown people. There's so much more to learn over in our written material, so make sure you head on over there. Lastly, rethink and imagine performance reviews, starting by renaming the process. For example, instead of performance reviews, call it year-in review or reflections for success. You could create a clear and transparent process that sets your team up for success. And a few key elements of that could be communicate the goal of the meeting in advance of the meeting. Number two, you could provide your staff with the template, the criteria, the elements of the review, anything that they need to consider to prepare themselves for your time together. Number three, make sure there is clarity around how the evaluation affects, or doesn't, their salary. Lastly, communicate in advance that this is a process that is designed to be collaborative. You want to welcome feedback and you want to co-create versus being punitive. Build relationships and trust by having regular check-ins, at minimum monthly, but I highly recommend weekly. As I wrap up, your most valuable asset is your people. What you invest in, what you feed, what you water, nourishes and grows, which is ultimately what you want for your people, is for them to grow and to get better. As you look to reimagine HR, I encourage you to reference the written materials of the toolkit to support you on your journey. Thank you, May. And as you all can see, I'm not going into acting anytime soon. So I'm going to stick with what I'm doing and not to be an actress and have to read lines because I'm not great at that. So as you could tell, I was like very, very nervous. Every time I watch it, I'm like, oh my God. But anyway, thank you all for watching and thank you for the comments. You all are great. I hope that the information there was helpful. In the interest of time, I wanted to just make sure that I was able to kind of highlight some of the areas that I talked about in the toolkit. Again, it was 8 minutes or 10 minutes or something like that. So it's really, really short snippets of what's possible in the 3 areas that we talked about. And the toolkit has a lot of templates, has some documents that I've used with other clients and in my work as to how to support people. Some questions, we talk about check-in prompts and templates to use in your review process. Reimagining and rethinking how you might rename performance reviews, right? Because who says, yay, I get to have my performance review? Says nobody ever, right? And so like, just the words just themselves just have a lot of anxiety in them. So just how we can really rethink and reimagine how we might administer human resources. A lot of that is over in the toolkit. So hopefully these documents will help you get started in these areas. As we know, HR is always evolving. The world is always evolving. And so it's important to know that we have to evolve with it, right? So just as we had done today, right? So we had this whole meeting like a month or so ago about how we were going to set this call up. And then life, the world, and we adjusted, right? We had the time where we centered, we had the time where we breathed, we had the poem, like none of that was part of the conversation a month ago, right? So I say all that to say that it's important that we stay connected to the human beings, like at the core of any of our organization is the human beings that make that up, right? So whatever service you're providing, whatever widget that we're working on or whatever, none of that is possible without the human beings that actually are in the organization, the organism that we work in. So it's important that we keep those at the center, keep the humans at the center, what's going on in their lives, stay connected to them, stay connected to how the world is affecting them and how that might affect how they may show up in the world. As a way to kind of introduce yourselves to this toolkit and how you might best support your organization with using some of the resources within it, potentially sit down with your leadership team, sit down with your board, sit down with your staff, share the video at a staff meeting, talk to your HR team, your operations if you have that, whatever the individuals within your organization that potentially make up the leadership team would be a great place to start to review the materials, to look at the video and open the discussion. The other point that I would just make is because the world is worlding and as I just mentioned, staying connected to what's happening is to only tackle, I encourage you to only tackle one thing at a time, right? So there is a lot that can be done in any of the 3 areas that were mentioned, as well as any other area of HR or any other area that affects the human beings in our organization. So tackling one thing at a time. So if wellness is something that your organization wants to tackle right now, that start with that and look at what you currently offer. Look at what is available to your staff. Ask them, talk to them, engage with them, find out what's missing, find out what's helpful, find out what's working and what's not working, and actually engage them in the process of creating what it is you want the outcomes to be. So tackling one thing at a time, trying it out, seeing if it works, adjusting, course correcting, and doing all the things until you get it in the flow that you want to get it in. But one thing at a time, because it can get overwhelming, right? And I mentioned involving your staff in the creating and in the delivering and in the creation of these policies that actually ultimately affect them, right? Your HR manual is the other place where a lot of these policies and procedures sit. So I would encourage you to take a look at your employee manual and see what's there, what's missing, what's not, what needs to be adjusted, what needs to be course corrected, where you're hearing from your staff, where there might be some suggestions around something you can shift or change. That would be another place to start the conversation and to see where you might want to enact some of the changes that your organization might want to undertake. And then my last sort of piece of advice is to be open, to be vulnerable, and to be willing to be uncomfortable. So these things that we're talking about, compensation, wellness, performance reviews, whatever we want to call them, they all are dealing with, again, the human beings that are in our organization, and they're sensitive subjects. These are subjects that that deal with, our mental health or our physical wellness or our advancement within the organization or how much money we are making. All of those things are really sensitive, can be really sensitive topics. And so there's going to be probably places and spaces and conversations that are going to be uncomfortable. And I encourage you all to lean in to those uncomfortable conversations. Lean in and get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because at the end of the day, our goal is to create and live in these spaces and workplaces where we can all thrive, where we all have what we need, and where we can live and be our best selves. And so leaning into that discomfort creates opportunities and openings for that to happen for all of us. So it's a 1:45, and we have some time that we wanted to set aside for some Q&A, and we also wanted to set aside some time for a reflection poll. So now, Jody, I know I'm a little past time.
Yeah, so let's have some, if you have any questions, if you can put your raise your hand thingy. And if you don't know how to do that, you can also just unmic and say, I have a question. And then we'll take some questions. If there's any questions.
Come on, you all. Not one question? I was that good? You have no questions?
I'd like to know if anyone has successfully implemented a sabbatical program in their workplace.
I can answer a little bit if you don't mind, Kiana. And
sure, go ahead.
So Communities Rise, I took a sabbatical last year in 2023, in the fall of 2023. It was the first employee to take one. I've been at the organization for 10 years when I took it. And so I had done some research, talked to some funders, and got some funding for it and presented it to my board. They were super successful, but we didn't have a policy at the time. So we sort of made one around what we looked at a couple of policies, and then we made one. And actually, this is a comment I was just going to say. We iterated, right? Like just what Kiana said. It was like we did that so that I could take mine, and we said you have to have 7 years of time at the organization before you are eligible, and et cetera. And we just relooked at it and revised it since, which was just like 6 months ago, because we were like, do we really want it 7 years? I mean, I was there 10 years, so I easily met that, but nobody else has worked here that long. The longest we've had net currently is 5 years at this point. And so we are like, that's really a barrier. And if we really want it to be used, if we really lean into our values of valuing the wellness of our staff, then why are we making it so hard to do this sabbatical policy? And so we changed it. We went through, we revised it, we looked at what other folks are doing, and we moved it to 5 years. And I think it was Tracy from Gathering Roots said they're doing 2 years, which is like, wow, that's really forward thinking. Hats off to you all over at Gathering Roots. And so I will say that we have one. The other thing I want to share is the BIPOC ED Coalition of Washington, which Communities Rise is part of founding, has a sabbatical out program that we've just launched that we're giving out up to 60,000 to organizations to fund sabbaticals for BIPOC leaders. It's available now. I'll put the website on the chat. And I think we were going to create a template sabbatical policy that folks can use to look at and put it on our website so that you can use it to put in yours. And then the other thing I was just going to say is our employee handbook, we're in the process of looking at all these policies. Just for what Kiona said and what I mentioned earlier was we adopted it way back when we had our first employee other than me. And, we're a legal organization, we had a law firm do it. And we read it, and it met all these legal requirements, about not discriminating and all of these things. And as we review it now, we're realizing, it's really just like a cover your ass legal document for the organization. And what we really, if we're going to lean into our values around equity and wellness, we really want it for the employees to support them. And so I'm being vulnerable right now to say that even at Communities Rise, we're looking at it and going, this is almost like punitive. Like if you do this, then this, and if the organization does something out of compliance, then that. And we revamped it not too long ago to change the tone and to rewrite it when we merged. And even then, it's a lot better. But like I said, we're continuing to evolve. We just changed our sabbatical policy, which was just 6 months old. So just wanted to add that.
That's awesome, Jody. I'm so glad to hear that. James, you had your hand up, but then you took it down. Did your question get answered?
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I just was trying to think on how I wanted to articulate my question a little bit more, but I think actually hearing Jody say more helped. So we, EPHI, we're going through an organizational development period right now, and a lot that's coming up is around all the gaps in our HR from, at our origins, our agency was 8 people that sometimes got paid, and we really tried our hardest, to now we are regularly 36 people with a rotating cast of interns, and what does it mean to where people don't feel caught up. And so 2 of the things that we're thinking about that are really coming up for us is, one is in terms of we need to focus our attention on one thing at a time to make sure that we do things well. And how do you pick the one thing when it kind of feels like there's all these other fires happening? And then the second question that I was starting to think on as Jody was talking about, about the way that the HR manual often comes off as punitive, and it's totally right. That's a legal document. That is not a how to be people together document. And how to reconcile that with APHI, we serve survivors of violence, of human trafficking, domestic violence, and sexual violence. And so how to reconcile that with, yes, everyone should be human. Everyone should have the time to be the rest. And it's really difficult work. And also, what does it mean? How do we have the conversation with someone who's experiencing that at the same time as also we, part of the expectation of being hired is that we do want you to be working with survivors. That is what we do. And so, yeah, thanks for letting me share that in long form. But those are the 2 things: is how do you pick which fire, and how do you balance, people are going through hard things in their lives at the same time as, we really value the work that we're also doing.
Yeah. Yes, James. Thank you so much. Yeah, how do you pick the fire? There's many of them, and I think the first thing is hearing from your people, what seems most urgent to them. and kind of getting a feel. That's, I think, a way to kind of approach it, and determining what you want to tackle first, with respect to which fire to put out first. The other thing is, like, with respect to your organization's values, right? So if wellness is a value of your organization, that might be a good place to start, right? Like, really, like, centering the values of your organization and then determining which one of those things that you look to start to tackle could be another approach to that. And then, like, as far as the work that you all do, like, what does support look like for knowing that people are, experiencing and working in these sorts of environments where they're faced with what you are faced with every day, like how you all are setting up support and resources for your staff to take care of themselves. Yes, and right there has to be a way to have a yes, and, like, yes, we're doing the work, and yes, the work is important, and we know that it's important for you to take care of yourselves as well. And so what does that look like outside of the box of, like, PTO, vacation, sick? Really getting creative about what that could potentially look like. Anyone else have anything to add to that?
I'll add that one, as I listen to you, James, I just think you got to be gentle with yourself as an organization too, because we have so much to do. You're doing your program work for the community, and then on top of that, you got this organizational internal work, and there's so many things, like you said, and everybody's busy. And so one of the things I keep telling my team is that we're working on it, and we have to give our whole team, our whole organization, grace that we can't fix everything internally all at once, and that it just takes time. Like when we merged in 2019, I told the team, look, it's going to take two and a half years to get all our policies in place and stuff, and we just have to lean in. We're going to be in transition for 2 to 3 years, and just accept it. Like, we can't think a year into it, wow, we've been merged 1 year and we don't even have our employee handbook done or whatever. Like, there's just too much stuff, and that we just have to know that that's just the reality of this work, and give each other grace. And then in the meantime, as Kiana said, one of the things we did was we also look at, like, as things come up, like when COVID first hit and there was George Floyd's killing, we just immediately just said, you know what, we got to give some mental health days. Like, we're just going to give you guys mental health days. Take what you need, or, I don't know. We made some policy that you can take additional days above your sick time. And so you kind of can have these temporary fixes that you can just do right away to help you to get through some of the other pieces, the bigger pieces of work.
That's good. Looks like Tracy has her hand up.
Yeah, I wondered if there was a template for integrating DEI at every level of the organization. And that's like a really big question, because that's a lot of stuff. But I feel like I'm constantly forgetting something in the conversation. Like we work to make space for neurodivergence. Like, I have pretty intense ADHD, and we have members of the team who have autism. We have members of the team who have PTSD. And so just like how to codify that, and also incorporate that in the culture. Because again, like, the white-bodied supremacist culture is go, 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 go. And you take too long to think, or you're taking too long to talk about this thing or whatever. So, like, how, just like, I sort of kind of know the answer, but I also would like to hear other people's thoughts about, like, how do you incorporate those kinds of things? And like, people oftentimes don't think about scent and the effects that people's different like hair stuff or perfumes have on other people. And sometimes people get a little defensive about not being able to wear their favorite perfume and all that kind of stuff, or not being able to burn incense. And sometimes burning incense or sage or other medicinals is part of ritual. And so it's like, how do you have ritual without doing that so that you're not triggering somebody's asthma or allergies, et cetera, et cetera.
Big question, Tracy. Super big question with a lot of a lot of parts. One of the things that I have, practices that I have and that I share with folks, how to like keep DEI at the center or all throughout, is I have like this string of questions. Literally, I have this document right here. It's called Equity-Centered Questions. And they're just questions that I consistently keep in the forefront of my mind, or to share with teams that cause us to stop and think and remember. And so it's part of like meetings and part of like just the way we move about our day, is like we stop and we ask these particular questions, like whose voice is not in the room, or who's benefiting by this decision that we're making or not, or is this process or is this decision in line with our vision and our goals, et cetera. Like those questions just make us stop, right? And it upsets the white supremacy sense of urgency apple cart, because it makes us stop, and it forces us to stop and not get caught in this, we got to keep going, right? And so that's just one thing. I unfortunately don't know the answer to the big question, but just some of those things, like having something as simple as some questions that just interrupt us in the way that we normally do go about our days.
Well, we're at 12:59, and so want to be respectful of your time. So we're going to wrap up, and Kai, I'm going to bring you on to talk, just frame the poll and close. Are you? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm here. Thank you so much. May has just added the poll, so you should be able to see it. We appreciate you giving us feedback today. So we have 3 questions around how useful you felt the launch to be, if you anticipate using this resource, and if you feel more confident in creating policies and practices. We think it looks like everybody has filled it out, and we have some great responses here. We definitely want to also know more from you. So May has added in the survey link, and as May shared, we're going to be sending back out an email with the recording, with a link to the toolkit, and an opportunity for you to give us more feedback. And if you have feedback right now about what would be helpful, like would it be helpful to get together with others and have these conversations more often? Are there more resources that you're looking for? Please feel free to type that in the chat or respond back to us. We're going to take that and hopefully come up with another set of activities to continue supporting this work. But thank you for joining us. Thank you, Jody. Thank you, Kiana. Excuse me, my friend is Kiona, so I keep reading it that way. And thank you, May, for helping us, and for all of you joining us today. I hope that you all continue to take care of yourselves and you have a great long weekend.
Thank you, everyone.